The dining room sparkled with crystal and silver as Mom stood at the head of the table, a champagne flute in one hand and a velvet box in the other. 37 family members filled the estate. My grandmother's historic manor, the one with 8 bedrooms, the library with first-edition books and grounds that stretched to the tree line. My sister Victoria sat beside Mom, perfectly composed in her designer dress, her husband Preston smirking into his wine glass. Their twin daughters, dressed in matching velvet, looked bored. I sat at the far end of the table between my cousin Hannah and her husband, watching Mom prepare her announcement. I'd known it was coming. Victoria had been dropping hints for weeks in the family group chat. This Thanksgiving, Mom began, her voice trembling with emotion, I want to honor the memory of my mother, your grandmother Elizabeth, by announcing the transfer of her beloved estate. She gestured around the grand dining room with its vaulted ceilings and oil paintings. This house has been the heart of our family for 3 generations. Victoria's smile grew wider. And so, Mom continued, I'm thrilled to announce that Victoria and Preston will be taking ownership of the manor, effective immediately. Victoria has always understood the importance of preserving family legacy, of maintaining traditions, of raising her children with the values grandmother Elizabeth held dear. The room erupted in applause. Aunt Margaret dabbed at her eyes. Uncle Richard raised his glass. Victoria stood and embraced Mom, both of them crying theatrical tears of joy. Preston was already on his phone, probably texting his contractor friends. We'll need to modernize everything, he said loudly. This Victorian stuff is charming but impractical. I'm thinking open concept, maybe knock down some walls. The girls need a proper playroom, Victoria added, gesturing to her daughters. That library is wasted space for old books. We can convert it, add some color, make it actually useful. I took a sip of water and said nothing. Mom pulled an ornate key from the velvet box. The master bedroom key, she announced, handing it to Victoria like she was crowning a queen. Your grandmother kept this separate as a symbol of the estate's steward. Now it's yours, darling. Victoria clutched the key to her chest. I promise to honor grandmother's memory. Preston and I will make this house everything it deserves to be. A showcase, a proper family home for distinguished guests. We're planning a housewarming party for New Year's, Preston announced. Black tie, catered by that Michelin-starred place downtown. We'll show everyone what this estate can really be. Uncle Richard leaned over. Victoria, your grandmother would be so proud. You've always been the one who appreciated fine things, who understood social standing. Unlike some people, Aunt Margaret said, her eyes flicking to me, who don't appreciate what they have. Living in that tiny apartment downtown, working on computers all day. Such a waste of breeding. I smiled politely and cut my turkey. Victoria was now FaceTiming friends, giving them a video tour of her new estate, while dinner continued around her. Yes, it's the historical manor. 8 bedrooms. We're thinking about adding a wine cellar, maybe a home theater in the basement. Mom beamed at her. You deserve this, sweetheart. You've built such a beautiful family, such an impressive social circle. You know how to present yourself, how to represent the family name properly. When do we move in? Preston asked, already measuring windows with his eyes. We need to give notice on our rental, start packing. January 1st, Mom said. I'll stay through the holidays, then the house is yours. We'll handle the paperwork next week. Simple property transfer, nothing complicated. What about Sophia? Hannah asked quietly, the first person to acknowledge my existence all evening. The table went silent. Mom waved dismissively. Sophia is doing fine with her little tech job. She doesn't need a big house, she barely leaves her apartment anyway. This estate requires someone who'll actually use it, who'll entertain, who'll maintain the family's social position. I'm a senior systems architect at TechCore Solutions, I said mildly. Not exactly a little tech job. Of course, dear, Mom said with false sweetness. But you don't have children, you're not married, you don't host events. Victoria needs this space. You understand. Victoria laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Sophia's happy with her computers and her quiet life. She wouldn't know what to do with a house like this anyway. Can you imagine her trying to host a proper dinner party? The cousins laughed. Preston raised his glass. To Victoria, the rightful heir to the estate. To Victoria, the room echoed. The doorbell rang, cutting through the celebration. Mom frowned. Who could that be? We're not expecting anyone else. I'll get it, I said, standing. I opened the heavy oak door to find Harrison Walsh, my grandmother's estate attorney, standing on the porch in an impeccable suit, his briefcase in hand. Behind him was Diane Cooper, the trust fund administrator I'd been working with for the past month. Harrison, I said warmly. Diane, thank you for coming. Perfect timing. Ms. Hartwick, Harrison said with a slight smile. I received your message. I understand there's been an unauthorized announcement regarding the estate. Very unauthorized, I confirmed. Please come in. I led them into the dining room where my family looked up in confusion. Victoria's smile faltered. Mom's champagne flute froze halfway to her lips. Everyone, I said clearly, this is Harrison Walsh, grandmother Elizabeth's estate attorney. And Diane Cooper, administrator of the Hartwick Family Trust. Mom stood quickly. Harrison, this isn't necessary. I've already announced the transfer to Victoria. We'll handle the legal details next week. Mrs. Hartwick, Harrison said, his voice professionally cool, there are no legal details to handle. You cannot transfer property that isn't yours. The room went absolutely silent. What are you talking about? Victoria's voice came out shrill. Grandmother left the estate to Mom. Mom can give it to whoever she wants. That's where you're mistaken, Harrison said, opening his briefcase and pulling out documents with official seals. Elizabeth Hartwick did not leave this estate to your mother. Mom had gone pale. That's ridiculous. I've lived here for 3 years since Mother passed. I've managed everything. You've lived here as a resident, yes, Diane Cooper said, stepping forward with her own folder. But the estate was never transferred to your name. It couldn't be. It was already designated. Designated to whom? Uncle Richard demanded. Harrison pulled out the will, yellowed with age but legally binding. Elizabeth Hartwick established a trust fund for her granddaughter Sophia Hartwick when Sophia was born. The trust included this estate, the vacation property in Nantucket, the investment portfolio, and various other assets totaling approximately $8.3 million. You could have heard a pin drop. The trust activated, Harrison continued, on Sophia's 30th birthday, which occurred 6 months ago. Sophia Hartwick has been the legal owner of this estate since April 15th of this year. Victoria's face had drained of all color. That's impossible. Sophia doesn't have money. She lives in a tiny apartment. She drives a Honda. I drive a Honda because I like it, I said quietly. And I live in a downtown condo because it's convenient for work. But yes, I own this estate. I've owned it for 6 months. Mom sank back into her chair. You never said anything. You never asked, I replied. When grandmother's will was read, you heard, trust fund for Sophia, and assumed it was some small amount for my future. You never asked Harrison for details. You just moved in and started acting like the estate was yours. Harrison nodded. Mrs. Hartwick, I tried to contact you multiple times about the estate management, about transitioning authority to Sophia when the trust activated. You never returned my calls. I thought they were about property taxes, Mom whispered. They were about property taxes, I said. My property taxes, which I've been paying since April. Along with the insurance, the maintenance, the utilities, the groundskeeper's salary. Preston was staring at the key in Victoria's hand, the ornate master bedroom key Mom had presented with such ceremony. But you gave us the key. A key to my master bedroom, I clarified. Which is why I had the locks changed last week. That key doesn't work anymore. Victoria threw the useless key onto the table. This is insane. You let us plan a housewarming party. You let us tell all our friends. I didn't let you do anything, I said calmly. I sat here and listened to you plan renovations to my house, talk about converting my grandmother's library into a playroom, discuss knocking down walls in my historic manor. I didn't interrupt because I wanted to see how far you'd go. Diane Cooper pulled out more documents. Ms. Hartwick contacted me 4 weeks ago when she learned of her mother's plans to gift the estate. We've been preparing the necessary documentation to clarify the ownership situation. 4 weeks ago? Mom's voice was hollow. You've known for a month that I was planning this announcement? Yes, I said simply. Victoria posted about this surprise in the family chat. She couldn't help but brag. So I reached out to Harrison and Diane to ensure everything was legally clear before you made this public mistake. Uncle Richard found his voice. This is a family home. Surely Sophia will let her sister and mother stay. Blood is blood. Blood is blood, I agreed. Which is why grandmother left the estate to me, not to Mom. She trusted me with her legacy. Harrison cleared his throat. I should mention that Elizabeth's will included a letter to Sophia, to be opened when the trust activated. In it she explicitly stated her reasoning. He handed me an envelope. I'd read it before, of course, but I opened it again now, reading aloud. My dearest Sophia, I leave you the estate because you are the only one who loved it for what it is, not for what it represents. Your mother sees status. Victoria sees a showcase. You see home. Protect it. Don't let them change it. Don't let them tear it down for something modern and soulless. You understand what matters. Trust your judgment. My voice cracked slightly on the last line. Victoria was crying now, angry tears that ruined her perfect makeup. I can't believe grandmother would do this, Victoria said. Leave everything to Sophia? The one who barely visits, who doesn't care about family traditions. I visited grandmother every Sunday for 5 years before she died, I said quietly. Every Sunday while you were too busy with your social calendar. I read to her, played chess with her, listened to her stories about the estate's history. You came on Christmas and Easter, stayed for an hour and left. Mom's face crumbled. I didn't know she was leaving you everything. She never said. She told you she'd made provisions, I said. You didn't listen. You heard trust fund and pictured some token amount. You never considered that grandmother would leave her only granddaughter everything because you couldn't imagine me being worthy. Aunt Margaret tried a different approach. Sophia, be reasonable. Victoria has children. She needs this space. You're single, no prospects. What will you do with 8 bedrooms? I'll live in them, I said simply. I'll work from the library grandmother loved. I'll walk the grounds every morning like she did. I'll preserve the first edition books Victoria wanted to throw out. I'll maintain the gardens exactly as they've been for 3 generations. Preston was pulling Victoria toward the door. We need to call the contractor, cancel everything. Tell our friends the party's off. Wait, Victoria said, turning back to me with desperation. We can share it. Like Mom suggested, different wings for different family members. You don't need all this space. No, I said firmly. Please, Sophia. We've already told everyone. Preston's parents, my friends, the country club. Everyone knows we're taking over the estate. We'll look like fools. You'll look like fools because you are fools, I said, my patience finally breaking. You assumed, you planned, you bragged, all without checking who actually owned the property you were giving away. Diane Cooper stepped forward. Ms. Hartwick has asked me to clarify the living arrangements going forward. Mom looked up with desperate hope. Living arrangements? Mrs. Hartwick, Diane said, you've been residing here as a guest since the trust activated. Sophia has generously allowed you to remain rent-free for 6 months while she transitioned into ownership. However, given tonight's events, she's decided new terms are necessary. I pulled out my own documents, prepared days ago when Victoria's housewarming party invitations started circulating. Mom, you can stay, but under a formal lease agreement. $1,000 monthly rent, below market rate for a property of this size. The lease includes stipulations. No unauthorized guests staying more than 2 weeks, no property modifications without written approval, and no claims of ownership to any visitors. Mom stared at the lease like it was written in a foreign language. You're charging me rent? To live in my mother's house. Pie house, I corrected gently. Grandmother's trust made sure of that. What about me? Victoria demanded. Are you just throwing us out? You never lived here, I said. You have your rental. I'm simply clarifying that you won't be moving into my estate, renovating my library, or hosting black tie parties in my home. Harrison was gathering his documents. Ms. Hartwick, the trust administration is now complete. You have full legal authority over the estate and all associated properties. If anyone contests this, the documentation is ironclad. Thank you, Harrison. Diane. After they left, the dining room felt cavernous and cold despite the fire roaring in the hearth. The Thanksgiving feast sat abandoned, nobody hungry anymore. The champagne had gone flat. Victoria grabbed her daughter's hands. We're leaving. Come on, Preston. Victoria, Mom started. Don't, Victoria snapped. You did this. You promised us this house. You humiliated us in front of the entire family. We're done. They left, the door slamming behind them. Several cousins followed, murmuring excuses. Aunt Margaret and Uncle Richard gathered their things in stony silence. Only Hannah remained at the table, looking between me and Mom. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I think Grandmother made the right choice. After she left, Mom and I sat alone in the dining room that had seated 37 people an hour ago. I don't understand, Mom said finally. Why didn't you tell me? Why let me make this announcement, humiliate myself? Because you did the same to me, I said. You announced Victoria was getting the estate without asking me how I felt. You dismissed my life, my career, my worth. You let everyone laugh about my little tech job and my quiet life. You wanted me to feel small so Victoria could feel big. That wasn't. It was exactly that, I interrupted. Grandmother saw it. She saw how you favored Victoria, how you praised her mediocre accomplishments while ignoring my actual success. She saw how Victoria treated this estate like a status symbol while I treated it like home. That's why she left it to me. Mom looked around the dining room, at the chandelier Grandmother had installed in 1982, at the wallpaper she'd hand-selected, at the portrait of great-grandfather above the mantel. What happens now? I pushed the lease agreement across the table. You read this, you sign it, and you follow the terms. Or you find somewhere else to live. Your choice. You'd really kick out your own mother? You really tried to give away my house, I countered. So yes, I would. Grandmother trusted me to protect this estate. That includes protecting it from people who'd tear down walls and convert libraries into playrooms. Mom picked up the lease with shaking hands. When did you become so hard? When I inherited an $8.3 million estate and watched my family try to steal it, I said. Sign the lease, Mom. Or don't. But decide by Monday. I stood and walked to the window overlooking the gardens. Outside, the oak trees Grandmother had planted 40 years ago swayed in the November wind. The stone path she'd walked every morning wound through flower beds she'd designed herself. This was her legacy. She trusted me with it. And unlike Mom, unlike Victoria, I understood that trust wasn't about status or showcases. It was about protection. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. You'll regret this. Family doesn't forget. I deleted it without responding. Another text from Preston. We need that house. Victoria's reputation depends on it. Name your price. I blocked his number. Mom was still sitting at the table reading the lease through tears. Your grandmother would be disappointed in how this family fell apart. Grandmother would be proud I didn't let them tear down her library, I said. She wrote that in her letter. Don't let them change it. I won't. 3 days later, Mom signed the lease. No negotiation, no argument. She moved her things into the East Wing guest room, leaving the master bedroom, my bedroom, untouched. Victoria stopped speaking to me entirely. The housewarming party invitations were quietly rescinded. Preston's contractor friends were told the job was cancelled. Their friends at the country club heard various versions of the story, none flattering. I converted Grandmother's morning room into my home office. My system's architecture work fit perfectly among her books and antiques. My Honda stayed parked in the circular driveway where Victoria had imagined Preston's Tesla. The estate that Mom tried to gift remained exactly where Grandmother wanted it. In my name, under my protection, preserved for what it was rather than demolished for what someone else wanted it to be. On New Year's Eve, I sat alone in the library, surrounded by first edition books Victoria would have discarded, and raised a glass of Grandmother's favorite scotch. To trust, I whispered, and to knowing the difference between an heir and a guardian. Outside, fireworks lit up the sky. Inside, the estate stood exactly as it had for 3 generations. Exactly as it would for 3 more. Because unlike my family, I understood what inheritance really meant. Not ownership. Stewardship. And the paperwork proved I was right.